Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the M2 iPad Pro, the latest generation that just came out, and compare it against my personal favorite iPad Pro that ever came out, which is the first generation iPad Pro 11-inch model, which is, I guess, the third generation iPad Pro. They got so confusing with the names. I'm glad now it's kind of more so like the M2 and M1 iPad Pro. These iPads, though, are very interesting because if you kind of look at the display and you look at away, like you could kind of confuse these iPads with one another. That's how similar they are. However, internally there are massive changes, and with the latest iPad Pro, I will definitely say it is a really good iPad. You know, it's probably the best iPad Apple has ever made, but personally, what's very interesting is since probably 2019, I've been using the only iPad I would say that I use that's not like a stagnant device that I just put one thing over and over again on it, like a photo frame or whatever, is the iPad Pro, this one. I love my iPad Pro 3rd generation or 1st generation 11-inch, and I think these are great iPads for sure. So I'll break it down like that. If you want to buy some iPads that I would recommend this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there on Amazon, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside, the iPad Pro 1st generation of the 11-inch ones, or the 3rd generation, whatever you want to call it, the 2018 iPad Pro came out with an 11-inch display. It was a liquid retina display, and it was it had ProMotion and it was True Tone. Now, this wasn't the first iPad to bring, ProMotion. It was the 2017 iPad Pro, I believe. But this one was actually really nice because it was one of the first iPads to remove the home button. It shrunk down the bezels quite a bit, and it made it look so premium. Now, I'm looking forward, right? When I bought that iPad, I looked forward a few years and I was like, I just can't think of anything Apple can do to make this iPad feel obsolete. And I still feel the exact same way in 2022, even though we've gotten like 3 more generations of iPad Pros after this, including the M series. It's still pretty insane to me how great of a job Apple did with this specific iPad. It's my main iPad. I still use it all the time. With my iPad Pro, the M2 model that just came out, this thing also has an 11-inch, display, ProMotion and True Tone. They both have 12.9-inch counterparts. Now, those 12.9-inch models are also very similar, but the latest 12.9-inch one, the M2 one, is way better than the 12.9-inch of 2018 in terms of the internals and everything. And you could argue that with this iPad too, with the M2 model. But externally, from the outside, at least with the display, I can't really tell too many differences. Of course, the newer ones have way better displays, but I'm still happy with my 2018 model for sure. They also have the same colors you can choose from as well, the space gray and the silver model, so it's very interesting. Now, they both have USB-C ports at the bottom, which is really, really cool, and they both are a little bit different. So with the iPad Pro, you do have, the 2018 one, it's a standard USB-C connector, but with the latest M2 one, it is now a Thunderbolt 4 port as well. So this allows you to connect to a different display and have 2 different things connect to it. All those Thunderbolt accessories will work on this type of iPad too. So that's a really cool thing that we have now with that type of iPad. And that in and of itself could be a big reason why some people would go and upgrade from a 2018 one to the latest generation one. Personally, it's not really worth it, mostly because I do all my work on a MacBook, but it's still a really cool thing that you have going forward with that type of iPad. Now, you have flat sides on both. The design is very similar on both as well, like I stated. And on the back, this might be one of the biggest visual changes you can see. On the top left, we have the camera sensors. Now, I'll talk about the cameras in a second, but if you kind of look at them, you can obviously see that there's a pretty big difference between them. You have the flat sides on both as well, which look very good. You have the, connector port on the bottom, not the port, but, the little magnetic strip on the bottom that you can go and connect accessories to, and that kind of covers it up. I would say in terms of similarity, the design of them, I would say it's almost like 85% similar. Besides the camera and maybe the better display, on the outside, you probably wouldn't be able to tell too many differences from one iPad to the other, if I'm being completely honest. Now, they both support Apple Pencil too, which is nice, and I'll definitely tell you, when it comes down to the outside of both, I love these iPads for sure. The latest one looks better, but I still think the current or the 2018 one looked fine as well. Now, in the camera department, the iPad Pro from 2018 had that 12 megapixel wide-angle camera and a 7 megapixel true depth camera on the front. The latest M2 iPad has a 12 megapixel wide-angle lens, a 10 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 12 megapixel true depth camera system with ultra-wide camera, whatever you want to call it, on the front. Now, I will tell you, without a doubt, the M2 iPad Pro has a better camera than the iPad Pro of 2018. Now, this is not the biggest difference between these two, but I will say this is a big difference. So if you're somebody who uses an iPad all the time and you're filming with it for some reason, then the iPad Pro, the M2 model, is definitely going to be the better one for you. However, I will argue and say that if you have a phone in your pocket that is an iPhone 11 or newer, that is going to be a better phone potentially for a majority of people watching this than either of these iPads. So that is kind of the best way to put it. That includes if you have an iPhone 11 Pro, if you have an iPhone 12, 13, 14. If you have one of those iPhones, it's going to be a better camera than this thing. So unless you're using the camera for some weird reason, like all the time, unless it's like for like a project or a security thing or whatever, then I would just recommend using your phone camera, and you don't really have to worry about the iPad camera too much. But it is what it is. And it's just another one of those things that you can go ahead and get if you upgrade to an M2 iPad Pro from a 2018 iPad Pro. But I've used the camera quite a bit on my iPad Pro, the 2018 one, and I didn't really have too many complaints, but I really wasn't looking for quality, so it really depends on how you look at it. But the M2 iPad Pro is definitely better in that standpoint. Now, in terms of software and longevity, this is probably going to be one of the bigger differences. I have no idea how long the iPad Pro 2018 model is going to last, considering the iPad 5th generation is still supported with software. So it could last another 3 years. It could be discontinued next year. I have no idea. But one thing is for sure, that the iPad Pro of 2018, I think, is still going to be continued with software support at least for another 2 years. If you think about it like this, I think the A9 chip is still supported, the A10 chip is still supported. So if Apple drops those two in the next 2 years, the A11 chip is still going to be there, and the A12 chip is still going to be there. This thing has the A12X. So I would imagine the next 2 years or 3 years, this iPad is still going to be supported, which is a long period of time. Now, when we look at the M2 iPad Pro with that M2 chipset, Apple is, I think, going to start putting in way more resources in marketing and all this other stuff for that M series of chipsets. Even though Apple also makes the A12 and the A series, they're focusing on the M series. They really want that thing to be the craziest chipset of all time, because I think they're going to start licensing this chipset to other manufacturers. Who knows what they're going to do? They're going to take over Intel. I have no idea. But basically, that's, I think, Apple's long-term goal. So they're going to perfect that chipset. Just like how Google's trying to perfect that Google Tensor chipset, or maybe even how Samsung's trying to improve their Exynos. I don't know what they're going to do there. But definitely when it comes down to here, I think the M series, like this M2 iPad Pro, who knows, but maybe it could last like another 7 years. Maybe it could be the longest lasting iPad. I have no idea. We're going to have to wait and see. But this also delves down to the performance. You're going to be getting a way more optimized, just way better performing iPad from the M2 iPad Pro than on the standard iPad Pro, the 2018 one. Now, to give you some numbers, they actually have the same, 8-core CPU with 4 efficiency cores and 4 performance cores. They have the different type of GPU. So on the 2018 one, we had 7-core GPU. Now we have 10-core GPU. We're also getting twice the amount of neural engine. We're also getting 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM on both models. And I will tell you from my experience, my 2018 iPad Pro has been amazing. I've had an amazing time with that iPad, and I will argue that with the latest generation M2 iPad Pro, it's also going to be way faster. Now, I've said this before in other videos, for my workflow, for editing videos and everything that I do, and maybe just going on Reddit and Twitter and YouTube and all this other stuff, an iPad Pro from 2018 could easily do what I wanted to do and then some. I can play a bunch of games, I can do whatever I want to do, and that is a really nice thing that we have going for the 2018 iPad Pro. Now with the M2 iPad Pro, it is a way more optimized machine. It's going to be faster, it's going to give you a way better experience, and if those things are important to you, then the M2 iPad Pro is definitely going to be the one I would recommend buying. If you're playing games, it's going to game better. If you're editing videos, it's going to export, faster. Whatever you're trying to do, it's going to be a faster machine. All I'm saying is that for me personally, I think a 2018 iPad Pro would still be perfectly fine in my standpoint as well. So that kind of covers it up there. And to be honest, I think it's quite obvious. The M2 iPad Pro is definitely the better iPad in every single area. But I still think if you own a 2018 iPad Pro, it's a very capable machine. I'm still keeping mine forever. I'm never going to sell it or, do anything with it. It's going to always be there. And that's something I love about that iPad. Even if it gets discontinued with software tomorrow, the hardware is still so good. That display is still so amazing that you can repurpose it for so many other things. So I think these iPads are great. The M2 iPad is definitely better. If you have all the money, go for that one. But I think the iPad Pro from 2018 still holds up very, very well for sure. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.